Every day, businesses across Canada are under attack, not by thieves with crowbars, but by sophisticated cybercriminal networks operating around the world. Groups with names like Shiny Hunters and Qilin have turned hacking into a multi-billion-dollar industry, stealing sensitive data and holding it hostage for ransom. Global ransomware damages are now estimated in the tens of billions of dollars annually, and Canadian organizations from hospitals to insurers to small businesses continue to find themselves in the crosshairs. When a company's data is stolen, should they pay the ransom and protect the customers and keep it operating? Or does paying simply fund the next attack? Joining us today is Arani Adhikari from Armor Cyber to explain how these criminal networks operate and what Canadians need to know. How have ransomware groups evolved from small-time hackers into sophisticated organizations, ones that can successfully target major corporations, governments, and critical services and infrastructure and tear it down so quickly? I'm Mike Wixson. This is tplmedia.ca. Go to tplmedia.ca local and find your local feed if you'd like. And don't forget to subscribe and tell a friend about what we're doing. Let's talk about ransomware and cybercrime. Joining me today, Arani Adhikari from Armor Cyber. Thanks so much for joining me, man. I appreciate this.
Thanks for having me over here.
Okay, why don't we start at the begin, okay? Where the average person gets the story.
Yep.
So I've just read in the newspaper that a major insurance company in Canada, for example, has been hit, their data has been targeted, and they have been hacked. It's usually the insurance company telling us this to make us aware as consumers that this has happened. But tell me, what has led up to that moment? What happened that made the insurance company have to make this announcement? Take us through that.
Perfect. So let's break down a couple of things. Let's start off with the hacking group itself, right? Let's talk about the evolution of ransomware, and then we'll get to how this happens.
Yeah.
10, 15 years back, right? Ransomware was not a term that was used a lot, right? Because there were hacker groups that were hacking for a specific objective, right? Now, over time, it has become a full-flown economy, right? So there are gangs out there that are operating with the scheme of extortion, right? So a ransomware, a very technical term, but if you break it down, it's extortion gang, right? What does extortion gang do? They are coming in, they're hacking into your company, they're holding your servers, your data ransom, and they're asking for payments. They're asking like, hey, if you don't pay me XYZ dollars, we are going to release this data or not going to give it back. Now, this evolution that has happened, it's not overnight, right? There are a lot of cybercrime gangs that have been operating in various models in Canada, globally. And you don't necessarily need to be in Canada to operate this thing. You can operate from anywhere in the world today and target companies everywhere. Now, the news article that you talked about, a local small insurance company that got hacked. Small, medium businesses are one of the most prolific victims of these gangs. Why? Because they do not have the basic security controls required to prevent them from coming in the first place.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about those things. But we talked about Qilin as an example. We were dealing with a Qilin case as of last week. It's a small company, 50 people, around 50 people, 50 employees, right? They have basic security controls, right? So they invested in security, but with an intent that just to check the box, right? So they had basic antivirus, basic things covered. Qilin specific, again, the way we from the industry know these hacker groups is they use specific techniques and targets and tools while they're coming in. So when they came in, right, they came into a specific user. The user did not have a multi-factor authentication. So that's essentially the password. When you put in a password, you get that SMS token saying, hey, this is the one-time password for getting in. The user did not have that set up, right? So they basically did something known as a phishing, as another type of a technique where they are able to get your username password. They use that, got in that one user account. Now, unfortunately, that user account had a lot of privilege. When I say privilege, they had a lot of
the ability to change and get access to data and files.
Exactly.
Right?
And once they were in, that was game over, right? Because they could then encrypt all the machines. Now, we got the call generally when the news article hits, right? Hey, we have been blocked. We can't do business. Can you help us get back in? Right, that's when we get involved, right, and take it from there. Now, a company to do actually a news article, that means they were already breached. They're proactively talking about it.
Okay, so I think a lot of Canadians, myself included, would envision these hackers as individuals in a basement someplace, a single individual with this ability, this super cyber ability to get in and wreak havoc. Is that the case, or are these more sophisticated operations than that?
10, 15 years back, that would be the case. Now, imagine a call center. It's a
Okay.
full operation. You have a HR, you have management, you have a scheduling manager, you have people actually doing the job, you have marketing. Think of these sort of organization as a full-fledged organization doing these things. Now,
These are full-fledged corporations
100%.
that are out there, and their sole purpose is to cause problems.
Havoc. Absolutely. They not only havoc, right? That's one of the objective. But think about it. It's a money motive driven organization, right? So you have revenue coming in from all this extortion. There's a cost of getting all the tools and techniques to do these attacks, right? There is a people cost, labor cost of people who are involved in this operation. So you have to manage them in a specific way, right? So ransomware, again, that evolution that we keep talking about, it has evolved into a full-fledged corporation with the motive for profit through ransom.
Yeah. Okay. So now these extortion machines, who are they going after? Like, what is an ideal target for, shiny hunters or Clop or Qilin?
So based on our experience of the cases that we have investigated, right? None of them have a specific target profile. They go after anyone and everyone. That's number one. But number two, once they go after the entire machinery, the people who actually fall victim to this are majority of the businesses which are small and medium. And the reason I say small and medium, and it hurts me to say that, right? Because these are people who have built their business
And
over
these are
time.
these are individuals that are suffering. here.
Individuals who are suffering. We have dealt with cases where business had to have shut down, right, because of a ransomware attack, right? And again, it hurts me to kind of say that, but small and the medium businesses are the ones who get targeted a lot, right? Because these gangs will go after everybody, but someone will fall, and the ones who will fall are the small mediums. Now, why is their defenses are not that great, right? When you talk about a big bank, a large institution, any large business, they have enough budget and they have enough manpower to invest in cyber and cyber security in general.
That's why I think I'm always a little shocked that it's an insurance company or a credit card company or a large online retailer that's been fallen victim, because you think, wait a minute, I saw all the warnings on their site. I clicked on everything, and it seemed very safe. And certainly that must be a level of sophistication that is required that's not necessarily required for the smaller businesses.
Exactly, right? Think about it. Cyber is a problem that's not always solved just by throwing money at it, right? It needs to be done proper, right? Exactly what you said, the large organizations, when they fall for it, it's not because they have not invested in cyber. They have not just invested in the right direction. They might have invested in very shiny tools, no pun intended on shiny hunters, but a lot of shiny tools that they have bought, but they're not using it properly. So there's no ROI, right?
Yeah, so they have all of these perfectly, the right software, but not set up in the manner that's required to.
No, not from a people perspective. So our business, we call it a people process technology, right? You can have the tech, but if you don't have the people and the process, the right people and the right process, that's just a shiny piece of tech just sitting around doing nothing, right? So a lot of the big ones that we see, and we investigated a lot of the bigger guys as well, the reason that happened was that one process that was not working, or that one piece of endpoint. So say, for example, a very tactical example, you have bought the best antivirus out there, and you have 100 machines that you need to be put on. Now you have put it on 80 of them, 20 of them you have forgot to put it on because of whatever reason it is, right? That's the chink in the armor where they're going to get in from.
That's the one crevice by which they can manage to get in. Okay, so now let's try to understand for the average person. I'm a business owner. I've arrived to work, or I've gotten a call from my IT guy, and they say to me, what's happened? Describe for me what the scenario is like on the ground for the victim.
And I'll tell you from experience, right? So North York, a manufacturing company, they're relatively large, around 800 employees in total, including obviously the factory workers and so on. We get called on day 2 of the situation, right? So we get called in when their existing provider was essentially extorting them as well, saying that, hey, if you don't sign this agreement, we are not going to help you, right? Those things happen.
Interesting. So their actual provider, instead of stepping up and saying, okay, we left a crevice, we left a crack, they start the money machine right there too.
Because they know that is the point to extort the money, right? And again, we don't believe in those practices. And there are a few There are few people who are like that. There are
Wow.
few industry players are like that.
This is wild to me.
Yeah.
The provider
Yep.
begins to say, okay, look, this is the point of extortion. These guys are desperate at the moment, even though they're my client,
Exactly.
and it's not me doing the hacking. Any assistance I'm going to give them, I'm going to start to charge through the nose because it's an emergency for them.
Exactly. And think about the business owner. So we spoke to the business owner directly, right?
Yeah.
Good gentleman has built the business over time, legacy business, and they're stuck. They have nowhere to go, right? Because all the machines are down, their billing system is down, their invoicing is down, their material shipment is down. The manufacturing floor still continues, but that's only going to go on for so long, right? So the situation on ground zero, and when we get into this sort of situation, is there's a lot of panic in the room,
Oh,
right?
sure.
Because people are going in different directions. They have different thoughts of what's going to happen. What should we do next, right? These are the things. Now, again, as practitioners, we operate in that land, right? So we know this is what's going to happen.
Right.
So the first thing that we go in and do is calm them down in terms of, look, there is a process out of this. There's a way out of this, right? This is what we have to do in the next 24, 48, 72 hours to get ourselves out of this situation.
Right.
Okay. So the first thing that we set up like a, almost like a command center inside the office. We have people from forensics, we have people from communications, we have, depending on the type of case, we'll bring lawyers in the picture, right? When there is data involved and data theft involved. And then basically go from there, right? So again, our practitioners have seen and knows the methods of getting them back, right? Now, most of the time we deal with business owners who are panicking a lot, right? So they are, they're more interested in like, hey, let's get the business back online. What we always say, let's get the business back online in the correct way, because the way they got in was because the system was designed in a certain way. That's how they got in.
Yeah, you're right. You've got two steaming train engines coming down parallel tracks.
Yeah.
Get my business back and make me safe simultaneously.
Exactly. Because listen, the way it was built, that's the way they came in. Now, if we just go back the same route, they're going to come back in. And we have seen those happen. We call it containment, but fast containment. If you contain the incident fast and not in the correct way, they are going to come back in. So what we, again, is it, as you said, there are two trains that, we run in parallel. One is let's figure out how they got in. Let's close those gaps and then rebuild the system in parallel and get them back online, right? So this case took, 2 weeks to get them back online completely, right? So the employees were all at home. They were given a communication through WhatsApp because the email system are down that, hey, this is what's going on. Don't, again, this is a private company, but in a lot of situations, it's a public company. Reporters will reach out to them as well saying, hey, what's going on? Why is this down? Why are you guys not going in the office, right? Now, rumors spread a lot and there is a lot of damage control that needs to be done. So we set up communication teams as well. Like, hey, if you get approached by any media or anybody else, just redirect to us. This is the messaging that we need to give out, right? So there are various messaging that goes out, but
so damage control, technically damage control, public facing,
absolutely,
damage control, staff and ownership remain calm. At what point is a ransom paid? At what point do you give up and say, okay, we got to pay this?
Yeah. Now, paying a ransom has, there's no industry standard about whether you pay a ransom or not, right? What the general advice that's out there, do not pay the ransom. Because one, as an individual, if you're paying the ransom, you know that they will know that you are a target. If they come back in, they know that you pay. You're a paying customer for them, right? So don't pay the ransom. Second, also as an industry, if we have this encouragement of not paying the ransom, they will stop targeting as well, right? But that's not the reality. That's the ideal world. That's not the reality, right? Reality happens, we have seen situations again when their backup, right? Because this is, you're talking about a machine with the data on it, a machine with a Windows operating system on it. And if the data is gone, the only way to get it back is through the backup, right? That's the only one way to that will save you against all of ransomware. If you have good backups, and a lot of our clients, again, this particular example, they had very good backups. So it took us some time to get them back, but they were back because of this. Now we have seen situations again, the backups are not there, right? So business take two decision points over there. Can we survive without it? Do we really need that data? Can we survive without just rebuild it back, start fresh? Can we do that, right? Now, a lot of companies can, depending on the business, right? For a manufacturing company, yes, your client records are gone, but then you know there's a relationship, there's a tribal knowledge about who the customers were, what they did. There's a possibility of building that backup if you're a small business, but if you're a larger business, right, you do need that data, right? So that's where the second decision point comes in is let's decide to pay. Right. And that's where insurance and all the other factors come in.
Okay, good. You just gave me another question about insurance, but So essentially, how do I know that I've been hacked?
Yeah.
Did they send me an email? Did they send me a threat note? Who does that go to?
Yeah.
How are you notified that this has happened?
It's a very, there are two major ways. One, obviously, the email, right? The email, again, the owners, if they have those emails, they will email someone that they know within the organization who has decision powers and so on, saying, look, this is what has happened, and we'll get to the content of it in very soon. But they often do it publicly, right? So all the computers, if that were ransomware, they'll have their wallpaper changed with a nice notice saying, hey, you have been hacked. And they'll actually claim who the hacker group was, right? Now, when we go in, we see that it's almost like a signature. It's almost like they're signing off.
Right. Okay.
So we know that what kind of group it was and where it came from.
And what their methods might be, and what they have a
Tactics
history
might
of
be.
doing. Okay.
Exactly, right? So that's almost like their calling card, right? They leave their calling card over there, and it's a very public method. When employees see this, obviously it's a panic sets on, right?
Yeah.
Or when they go to their computer, all the files are encrypted, they can't do anything, right? The computer is not workable, right? So how do you know they get hacked? This is how they kind of do it. Now they claim over there, it's a very standard wording that they will use, like, look, it has been hacked. If you don't pay, they will claim the ransom amount. If you don't pay within a certain amount of time, they will either release that data or make it public, right?
What kind of ransoms are these guys asking for?
It depends. Like, we have seen as much as $5 million, $7 million. We have seen cases where it has gone up to $20 million, but they know it's a negotiation. So they start from there. They're not getting paid that. They know that, right? So it generally starts at a very, very high, abnormally high number.
Right.
And then it goes down from there.
Abnormally high, extortion.
Yeah.
Who knew that there was an actual market range, right?
Yep.
And so what kind of money are like a Clop or a Qilin or Shiny Hunters, what kind of money are they extorting on a yearly basis, do you think? No, you don't have to be accurate.
No, it's, I think best case, high two-figure multi-millions, right? High seven figures, right?
Wow.
They're easily getting away with that because, look, this is one aspect. Again, when you go back to this whole economy of cybercrime, right? When you line them back to the organization, you might see Shiny Hunters, Clop, Qilin as like the front faces, almost a front organization. Behind the scenes, there might be a single organization who is orchestrating all of that, right? You never know that concept because whatever we know about this group is what we have learned from the cases, right? What our industry peers, our other forensics firms have learned from these cases. And then we try to attribute this back, right, to these groups. What is extremely important is it's a massive industry, right? Like this, the client that we talked about, we have cases, where they have actually paid the ransomware. It started off with, $5 million demand. It has gone down as low as like $1 million or, low sub-million, right?
That's serious money.
Oh yeah, 100% serious money. And all of these, and when we engage in this conversation, it's not, there are various parties involved in that, right? So we work with certain firms who are negotiating firms. Their bread and butter is negotiating, engaging with a threat actor, getting the proof of life, right? To see, hey, this is a correct group, that's actual damage, and these guys can actually recover that data back. So they'll give you a proof of life, they'll give you a small key and say, hey, recover this one part of the data and see if it works.
See if it actually is okay.
It's okay. And then if everything works well, they make the payment. So but
they start to negotiate that payment
100%,
price and start to make sure proof of life is
life. Exactly. And that process takes 1 to 2 weeks. It's a very interesting way to kind of see how the conversation happens. Now, these firms that we use, again, they're not hundreds of these. There are very specific firms that we use, which are out there in the industry, and they have engaged with similar threat actors before. So it's almost like they know the negotiator who's going to come in, right? And once they engage, they know their tactics. They know how they're going to, get the dollar down, right? And that's what they're paid for. And that's essentially what their money is there for.
Okay, so now we found ourselves in this position.
Yeah.
Why? Why are so many companies being hacked? I mean, you can say, well, they don't have the right cybersecurity, but be specific. What is it that these guys are getting away with that we can't seem to stop?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you heard about AI and how AI is going to cause a doom and everything, right?
No, I've heard about this AI.
Yes.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. But, what I like to tell my clients and tell any prospect that I meet is, forget AI for a moment. Let's go back to basics, okay? Cybersecurity is not a very hard problem to solve, right? When you look at the basics, right? Let us talk about few, things that could have prevented this in future, right? So multi-factor authentication, the amount of time that I've seen clients getting saved just because they had MFA on, right?
I get so irritated by it.
Yes. Yes, so does everyone.
Oh,
Yes.
good. I wanted to make sure. I thought that maybe I
You're not
was
the only one.
on my own on this one.
Yeah, I get rated by it, but it's a necessary evil in this age right now.
Yeah.
And there are other solutions like passwordless authentication. There are other innovation that's coming in the market that wants to make security a bit of a less pain, a bit more transparent, because more friction you put in a user's life with all security guards,
Exactly.
they're going to either try to find a way around it, or they're just not going to use it, right?
Right.
So MFA is a one solution, but there are other solutions, the backups that we talk about, right? If a company has a good backup, and there are various strategies around backup.
Oh my
they
God, I
will
just
get
caught
secure.
up. MFA, multi-factor
There you go.
authentication.
Yeah.
And there will be other acronyms at the end of this episode. We'll clear for you. Okay, gotcha.
Listen, we are an industry full of acronyms. I say we make this complex. We make it seem complex with all these acronyms. It's not.
Well, I mean, I think that it's complex enough that you can't ignore it. That's the obvious thing.
Absolutely. So, MFA, multi-factor authentication, backup, and the third thing that I always say companies have is a very good antivirus. Right now, there are various types of antivirus. There are various price points of antivirus. You don't necessarily need to have something extremely expensive. Today's market has evolved in a way, right? So, if you have these three things, majority of the cyber attacks are going to be stopped.
How are we not putting this into place in multi-million-dollar companies? I mean, we have antivirus in our own computers, our own personal computers. How are we missing this at the corporate level?
We call it defense in depth. And the reason I said these three, there are a lot of other security controls that can be put in, but these are the non-negotiables. And this is defending the user. So because think about it, on a daily basis, you're interacting with email, you're interacting with a website, you have a laptop or a mobile phone or a tablet from which you're doing this interaction. First step, protect this part, protect these things that you're interacting with the open internet on. Things where you're getting your email on. Let's protect this. Second layer, let's protect the servers. Even if there's a threat actor in the environment, they can't laterally move. We call it lateral movement, right? They cannot move in between. They might compromise you, but that's okay. But they have not compromised the organization, right? We can get you back, right? And the third, with the backups, even if they get in, right? So again, defense in depth. Our assumption, they will find a way to get in, right? It's from a strategy perspective, we call it the assumed breach model, right? So we know they're going to get in, so let's defend like they're already in the environment.
Where is all this taking place? What part of the world is being allowing this to go on, or is it just coming from different parts of the world?
It's coming from different parts of the world. Obviously, there are said countries, right, like Iran, Russia, North Korea. Like when you think about the axis of evil, if I may call it that way, right? You see majority of this group coming out of Eastern European countries, right? North Korea is one of the most famous, country and groups where there are a lot of hacking groups over there. It's regimented over there, right? So the Sony hack back in the day, if you have heard, like
I remember, that was the one that we all started hearing about.
Exactly, and the number of times they got hacked as well, right? So that was from a group called Lazarus, right? That is,
I remember, yeah.
Lazarus is famously attributed to North Koreans, right? Now, having said that, in Canada, Ontario, right, and it's public actually, there was an arrest of a guy operating a ransomware from there, right? Now, they had affiliations to the group. So where they are located from a geopolitical perspective is irrespective right now, right? Like they can be anywhere, but the headquarters, if I'm calling that, the groups that are calling the shots are in those parts of the world because they are sanctioned. They need ways to create revenue streams which are not legitimate, right? And this is one of the ways to create that revenue stream.
Even if it's not legitimate, it could certainly be legitimate business, but they're looking for ways to do it.
100%.
And so now inside that country, there's suddenly a banking system to handle the extortion money.
Absolutely.
Like if you tried to do that in Canada, the banks would stop you,
Yeah.
hopefully, and say, no, you can't bank extortion money. We don't allow that.
Yep.
So this is happening in countries, obviously, that would allow that.
Absolutely. Now think about it. The ones that most of the ransom payments are using cryptocurrency, right? Ripple, Bitcoin, anything else, right? So once they are in, right, the next part that goes from there is how do you funnel that digital money out into physical cash? So there are money mules out there, right? Which can be anywhere in the world. There's a whole economy set up for that. The sole job of the money mule is to go convert the cash and make the cash payments through money laundering and number of different payment methods. Now, obviously, in a North American context, South Asian context, there are a lot of banking regulations. They're ahead in terms of banking regulations that stop a lot of these.
Yeah.
But when you go to a lot of the other countries, there are not a lot of banking regulations that will stop this, right? Especially if you talk about North Korea and so on, right? That's a whole black box for us anyways, right? So once the money leaves, right, it leaves a trail. We know which countries it passes through, but it's the jurisdiction is so high, unless a law enforcement agency is going after them, right? As small mom and pop shops, they have no way to trace this out.
Gotcha. Is there a whole world of insurance now that's based on the hack?
Yes. Now it has been happening for a while now.
It has, yeah.
So what they do is now, you have the regular errors and omission, director's insurance, liability insurance. They added cyber insurance, right? So what used to happen when they first came up with these policies, they're going to underwrite the policy based on the company's health of cybersecurity, right? Typical same thing how we get a life insurance. Now, what has evolved over time is the amount of premiums that they're collecting versus the amount they were paying out. So what they said was, like, if you get ransomware, given you're doing all of these things, we are going to pay for it up to a certain dollars.
Right.
Now, what used to happen, right? There was a couple of stats a couple of years back, is the amount of premium collected versus amount they were paying was extremely high. So they're making actually a loss on it. So the insurance industry, what they started doing is they started raising the bar, right? Which is a very good practice, right? Cyber insurance is a business, aspect. It's not a technical software. Every business gets it, right? Hopefully everybody's getting cyber insurance as well. But now insurance has made it extremely difficult for a company to get insured, right? So they said you at a minimum need to have this 10, 12 controls if you have to get insured. Otherwise, either you'll be non-insurable or your insurance is going to be very high.
Has that made a difference to what kind of crime we've seen now that the insurance companies have sort of said, okay, we'll give you the insurance, but you have to have these basics in place? Is that reduced?
100%. I think overall cyber insurance as an industry has evolved a lot and has done good for the industry, right? They have raised that bar by saying that, hey, at a minimum, these EDR, which is the advanced antivirus, you need to have an incident response plan. You need to have a tabletop which, say something happens, you know what to do, right? Those things at a minimum has to be done. What that has led to do, and a lot of my clients actually come from there, is they will say that, hey, I'm trying to apply for cyber insurance. They have given me this 10, 12 requirements. I have no idea to interpret it. Can you help us get it done?
And you create the strategy that backs up.
Exactly.
See, that seems like a very important part of the business. Even more important than actually unraveling what happens for a client is helping them prevent this. And go through the right steps in that way.
Exactly.
So, okay, scare me for a minute. Let's look into the future a little bit. I'm sure you do this every day. Right now, we've got a certain amount of cyber hacking going on using a certain amount of tools. You introduce AI to the discussion, and suddenly the hair's, what's left of it, goes up on the back of my neck. Well, actually, that's where the hair remains. But having said that, what do you envision being the terror points in the coming year or two?
Yeah. Listen, what AI has done, honestly, is it has increased the velocity of these attacks, right? We are still going to see the similar attack patterns. We are still going to see the same techniques being used. We're going to see the same bypass being used, okay? But the rate at which it was going on, that's going to quadruple, if not more than that, right? Because today what AI has done with this entire thing is it has augmented human beings, right? I think we are far away from the replacement theory of human beings. It's always augmentation, and what a human could do in one day, they can do it in 1 hour, right?
That's a great perspective.
Same goes for the attackers, right? What they could achieve, the kind of scans, the kind of emails, the phishing email that you get on an email saying, hey, click on this link to activate a password.
Good idea.
Unless it's from your IT.
Okay.
But check with them. But, when you go those emails, think about the rate at which they could be delivered, right? Has now will exponentially increase, right?
Okay.
The rate at they will, create an exploit. So exploit is basically a technical code. When you have a vulnerability, that's the technical code to exploit that vulnerability to get in. So your server is there, server is exposed to the internet. You are running a certain version of a software, and that has a vulnerability to it because it's not patched. There's a certain code required to get in.
Right.
That's what the exploit is, right? The development of exploit used to take time. Now it's going to be seconds, right? Now they're going to use code to kind of do that.
It can just randomize instantaneously until it
Exactly.
connects.
And Anthropic actually released a paper last year which said how attackers are using Claude, right, to generate these attacks. It's a fantastic white paper. If you want, I can share the link for the guests.
I'd
right?
like that. Thank you.
So because that actually said how they're weaponizing all these exploits, how they're writing clean emails, right? Not with broken English that can actually bypass all the email security systems, right? So I think the velocity is going to increase. Techniques are going to remain the same. At the same time, if businesses go back to the basic, instead of thinking on the hype and the noise, because there's a lot of noise on AI, instead of focusing on the noise, if they can just go back to the basic and fix a few things, I think they can survive this age.
I really appreciate you chatting me through this because, to be honest with you, it is sort of nebulous to people who have not had this, but it sounds like it is exactly what we imagined. You arrive, our system is down, I can't do business, my employees are all freaking out. I've been the failure in letting this happen for my clients and my IT team because I haven't given them the wherewithal to do this. What do you do when you visit a company and address this for the first time? How do you guys do that?
Yeah, so on multiple fronts, right? So for one thing, like we said, it's a lot of face-to-face discussion in terms of, look, there is a way out, and this is the plan that we're going to face, that we're going to execute to get you out of the situation. Second place, let's fix the basics. Let's fix where they came in from, right? That's a very technical conversation, and the guys, on the hour one, they start doing that. Right?
Even before cyber attack, how do you go? What do you go into the company and you say, I'm going to try to help you avoid this kind of extortion. Here's the strategy.
Yeah.
How do you handle that strategy?
Absolutely.
Business by business, or is there a standard?
It is there is a standard. There is something that's common across business. Like no matter any business that you do, you will have data, you'll have email, right? So there are standards way of protecting it. Now, what changes is how the business operates, how the business makes money, what are the revenue generating function of the business, right? What we say is, for a business owner who has never seen a live cyber attack, they don't know the pain. They have not gone through it. They have read about it. They have read about newspapers.
It sounds terrible, right?
It sounds terrible, but they have not seen it in action. So when we
Right.
say that, look, you need to spend XYZ dollars, and that's a cost. Cyber is, again, it's a line item on the IT, and that's an expense, right? No matter how much the industry will say that cybersecurity can create revenue, they don't. They're an expense at the end of the day.
Right.
Now, what we say is, let us transfer this expense in terms of business risk, right? If you don't do this, what is your actual impact and
What's your
how much,
exposure,
what
yeah.
your exposure, right? And that resonates a lot with business owners, because we don't want to just give you recommendation and leave at it, because they're not going to do anything about it. Like, I used to work with a lot of big consulting firms before. We used to create this nice fancy reports. It used to just sit in somebody's drawer for 2 years, right? Nobody did anything about it, right? Nowadays, what I change the approach and the strategy is, when I go and talk to someone, I say, look, this is the bare minimum you have to do. This is how you can do it. If you don't do it, this is your exposure, right? It's ultimately a risk appetite call, right? Can you live with this risk, right, in your business? Some business actually can live with that risk, right? But most cannot. 99.99% of the businesses will not be able to live with the risk, even though the business owner might think differently. And that's it. We show them that value from that side, right? We don't show a value from, look, there's the best software to defend you. We say, look, if you don't have this piece of software, this is what might happen, and this is the opportunity to cause it. Like, look at the example of the companies down with ransomware. Even if it's 5 days and employees are not coming into the office for 1 or 2 weeks, that salary is just gone, right? That's a big expense over there.
That's a huge expense on a business. Absolutely. And the prevention element of it must be dramatically less than paying that ransom of between 1 and whatever millions of dollars.
Exactly. And there are plans today, there are standards, there are compliances today. Canada has come up with certain regulations as well. The industry overall is trying to evolve and bring up regulations in specific sectors, right? So banking, finances have specific regulation. When it comes to defense industry, there are specific regulations that are coming in. Now, regulation, without a teeth is just guidance, right? That's a good to have, right? But we have seen a lot of regulators now change in terms of the amount of penalty you have to pay if your data gets exposed. So if you're a company, if you're handling customer data, and if you fail to provide the necessary safeguard to do that, tomorrow you need to pay a penalty. I think that's a regulation with teeth, because there's a real business impact over there. People get it, and that drives them to think, hey, I must have cybersecurity.
If all you have to do is change code to devastate an industry, then it sounds to me like you're right about that. Yeah.
And that drives a lot of discussion on cyber. So, in our books, how we get business, one, cyber insurance. People go to insurance, people say that, hey, I don't know what this means. I need to have that policy.
Right.
Help us get that policy. Second, people having these sort of compliance requirement, right? So they are operating in an industry. A lot of startups today, when they're doing the whole fintech startup, right? They can't go to a customer or sell to a bigger bank, because the bigger bank is going to say them, hey, you must comply to all of this before you can do business with us.
What's your compliance?
What's your compliance, how you're doing it. And that's driving a lot of this conversation. So regulatory compliance, although it's a pain, in our business at least, is driving a lot of this conversation of, hey, I need to, it's almost like a deal breaker, right? If I don't have this, I can't sell to a big 5 bank, right? So that's driving them to think that's a business enabler, right? And I must have this cost right now if I have to do business.
Arani, let me ask you, is there a different standard based on industry to industry? Are industries finding their own specific requirements within sectors?
Yes, there is a common standard across industries, right? For example, if you talk about NIST, it's a body out of US, it has something called as a NIST CSF, Cybersecurity Framework. And that can be applied to any industry that you go with, right? But say, for example, when it comes to payment cards, right? People who are doing transactions and processing, there is something called PCI DSS, Payment Council Industry Data Security Standard, right? So that's specific to that sector. And that has very specific requirements based on how much volume of cards you're processing.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So while the standards have evolved, there are a lot of guidance out there. So in technical terms, a guidance is a good to have best practice.
Best practice.
Compliance is you must be doing all of this. Right. So there's a lot of industry agnostic standards, right? But there are industry specifics as well that has come up now. The other one, like which is coming up a lot in US, right? For the defense industrial base or the companies who are suppliers of DoD, Department of Defense, that's essentially CMMC. Right. So CMMC, there's a lot of talk about CMMC overall. It took a lot of time to get that established, but ultimately they tell you that, hey, if you are this level of supplier, if you are supplying certain type of data to the US Department of Defense, even if you're a vendor of a vendor, you must have all these requirements, and they provide different levels of it. They provide a whole ecosystem of auditors who can come in and actually independently audit and attest to it. And they also have the readiness, right? So we go in as as assessors, as consultants, saying that, hey, you must do all of this if you are to pass that audit.
Right. And so you have the roadmap essentially, and you can lay them out for the client, take them down the road of safety as best you can. This is a fascinating industry. And I'm so delighted to speak to you because there's a lot of, like I say, it's nebulous in our minds. We know that it happens. We know that it could affect us personally when it happens to a company. It could affect the company that we're working for.
Yeah.
But boy, it really is as basic as extortion in the end, isn't it?
Exactly. It goes back to the basics of cybercrime. There's a reason crime is attached to cyber, because it's a criminal gang at the end. And whatever in the physical world, whatever type of techniques you use, it's exactly the same way that they're replicated online.
Armor Cyber. And I'm going to recommend people reach out if they have questions about this that I didn't ask today. They can put them in the comments, but reach out to you directly. I'll make sure that your information is in the description, but where can they find your website?
It's armorcyber.io.
Yeah.
Again, we'll put the links and everything in the description. Call us anytime. We are, again, we are based in Canada, but we have clients today in Canada, US, LATAM. We do a lot of work in South America as well.
Okay.
Very interesting market, very interesting conversations. Just reach out for a conversation. Again, our main aim is to educate people. It's a lot of an education game, essentially. Let's do the basics, right? It doesn't need to be a big spend. You don't need to spend a lot of money. Just do the basics to protect yourselves.
You just need a plan.
You just need a plan.
All right. Well, find out from Arani, Adhikari. I appreciate this. Armor Cyber. And as we have more questions, I have a feeling we'll tap in if you don't mind. I won't hack in. I'll just give you an innocent
I appreciate
email.
that. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having the time for us today. And thank you for taking the time with us. And I'll encourage you to go to tplmedia.ca, tplmedia.ca/local if you'd like to see what's going on in your neighborhood. And we'll catch you here next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Looking for reliable and convenient personal safety products? Less Lethal has you covered. As Canada's only authorized Byrna distributor, we provide a range of products for recreation, protection, and security. Explore our Byrna launcher lineup, including the LE, SD, TCR, and Mission 4, designed for different levels of performance and protection needs. We also offer the Banshee personal safety alarm, designed to protect children, women, and vulnerable individuals. Because your safety is our top priority. Shop now at lesslethal.ca.